The Trinamool Congress is all set to abstain from voting in the Vice President's election. TMC National Secretary Abstain Banerjee has made this announcement. Remember, the West Bengal governor is running for the post of Vice President. He is the NDA's Vice Presidential candidate, Jagdeep Dhankhar. Let's go across to Saurabh, joining us with the very latest. Saurabh, what more can you tell us about these developments?
Well, Jagdeep Dhankhar and the Trinamool Congress have shared an extremely bitter relationship to the extent that Mamata Banerjee blocked Jagdeep Dhankhar on Twitter. So that's the backdrop to start, or let's say the starting point of where all of this begins.
Right.
Now, of course, Dhankhar has been someone whom the TMC did not want in Bengal or wanted out of Bengal. And it seems that at this point, the TMC also has, consistently been at loggerheads with the Congress. And, while Yashwant Sinha was someone whom the Trinamool had backed and he was chosen as the consensus opposition candidate, on the vice presidential elections, you don't see that kind of consensus at all. Because Jagdeep Dhankhar, after all, the Trinamool will be happy to see him lead Bengal. And that is something that Sugato Roy, the parliamentarian from Trinamool Congress and senior leader of the Trinamool Congress, has said in as many words that we are relieved that he's been appointed, he's been nominated for vice presidential elections. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of political, reasoning for this. What is the TMC stand? Because the TMC is at this point, what sources are telling us, it wants to take a Naveen Patnaik-like position where it sees that we are equidistant from both the BJP and the Congress. But in other terms, this also sources are telling us that Jagdeep Dhankhar, while he shared a very frosty relationship with the Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, there was this meeting in the Darjeeling Raj Bhavan a few days ago where it was described as a courtesy meeting. And this was, of course, also attended by the Assam Chief Minister, Himanta Sarma. So obviously, in these, situations and these circumstances, the Trinamool Congress has decided to abstain in the Rajya Sabha elections. It cannot, of course, it's not supporting Dhankhar, that's what they're saying. But at the end of the day, the Trinamool Congress wanted Dhankhar to leave Bengal. They didn't want him in Bengal because he was, and the Trinamool and Jagdeep Dhankhar were constantly exchanging, barbs at each other. And perhaps there's more to this than what meets the eye at this point. That press conference is happening as we speak, where Abstain Banerjee, Mamata Banerjee's nephew and the National General Secretary of the Trinamool Congress, is sitting alongside Sudip Bandyopadhyay, who is also a senior leader of the Trinamool Congress. And that press conference, making that announcement, happened right after a meeting of senior leaders at Mamata Banerjee's Kalighat residence in South Kolkata.
Right. So is this essentially, Saurabh, then being looked at as a political masterstroke by the Trinamool Congress to ensure Jagdeep Dhankhar's departure from the Raj Bhavan in Calcutta?
Well, yes, the Trinamool has said it in as many words that we want him to leave the Raj Bhavan, and even if he gets a position, higher position, whatever it is, we want him to leave. And that is something that's stated in as many words. It's not even to be read in between the lines, but saying so in as many words. So obviously, but the fact is that when the Trinamool abstains, it does help Jagdeep Dhankhar. It helps the BJP, though not directly, but in an indirect way, it does help. And that is something that, is the Trinamool going to have to explain. Now, obviously, Mamata Banerjee earlier in the day had a very, very, big rally in Kolkata, in the Esplanade area. This is the 21st of July. This is an extremely important day as far as the Trinamool Congress calendar is concerned. It's observed as Shrinky Gosh because this was the day. And that rally, Mamata Banerjee attacked the BJP. in very strong words, saying that 2024 we will defeat them and all of that. But on the other hand, there is, of course, political calculations in this decision. What those political calculations are is something that what we're being given to understand is being explained in that press conference that is happening at Mamata Banerjee's Kalighat residence right now.
Saurabh, also what's going to be extremely interesting to see is how this entire abstention plays out in terms of a setback to opposition unity, because, we've seen that opposition unity has been completely shattered when it came to the candidature of Draupadi Murmu, with several parties announcing their support for Draupadi Murmu. What we're also learning is that there's been a lot of cross-voting where MPs and MLAs have voted for Draupadi Murmu against their own party lines. And now the TMC deciding to abstain from voting in the vice presidential elections, no vote in favour of Margaret Alva for whatever their own sort of political reasons may be to want to see Jagdeep Dhankhar out of West Bengal. But it is a setback to opposition unity, isn't it?
Yes, it is a setback to opposition unity. It is a setback to those who believe that the opposition can come together and form a consensus candidate. Now, even in the case of Yashwant Sinha, several opposition parties, including the Shiv Sena, dropped out. And, of course, Yashwant Sinha, as we know, is losing the presidential election. But that is also due to Draupadi Murmu's candidature. Even though many may say it's symbolism in terms of, empowerment of tribals or empowerment of women, the fact is that symbolism is extremely important in politics. So, which is why even in terms of the election of the president, where Yashwant Sinha, who resigned from the Trinamool and then, of course, took on this role, is fighting a losing battle, essentially. And there was some amount of consensus on the presidential election. That, of course, then you had the Shiv Sena deciding to vote another way. And this happened in the aftermath of the rebellion within the Shiv Sena, where most MPs and MLAs have now switched sides and have joined hands with the BJP. But that's another chapter. The fact is that the vice presidential elections also will see, for example, very aggressive voices of the Trinamool are there in the Rajya Sabha. So it'll be interesting to see how Jagdeep Dhankhar and the Trinamool MPs manage, because when you become vice president, as of course, Rajya Sabha is where, the vice president also chairs. So that is something that is going to be interesting to watch. But there is political reasoning and political, circumstances that have led the TMC to make this decision. Obviously, once we hear that press conference in detail, we'll get to know how they've explained this decision, because that's really going to be important. Like you were saying, the whole opposition unity is clearly a pipe dream.
Right. Saurabh, thanks very much for joining us with that update. Whatever may be the political compulsions, opposition unity, there definitely, it's a setback for opposition unity as far as the VP polls are concerned. The TMC won't support Margaret Alva and will abstain from voting in this election. It's going to be a clear advantage for Jagdeep Dhankhar, the governor of West Bengal, if the TMC abstains. How they've really explained it, there is a press conference that is underway, and we'll, of course, have Saurabh track that for us and bring you the latest details on that. But very interesting turn of events. So the TMC choosing to abstain from voting in the vice presidential elections. Are they just trying to ensure that Jagdeep Dhankhar is no longer in the Raj Bhavan in Calcutta, or is there some larger political play here?